Welcome back to another episode of the Todd Durkin Impact Show. And I am super fired up today. Why? Because I'm getting to record a podcast. And I love recording podcasts. And I love getting your feedback. Thank you all who have either DM'd me, left us a glowing endorsement on iTunes, on Facebook, or wherever else you're leaving your message. I see every one of them. And your words are truly oxygen to my soul. So appreciate that. As a matter of fact, one of our recent listeners dropped this into my Instagram the other day. Driven by strength, Stacy Jones says this: I'm sitting in my car in tears. You're talking to me, Todd. Going to get on my tennis shoes, put in my ear pods to listen to your podcast fully and go for a walk right now. Thanks for the real talk that I needed to hear to remind myself who I am, that this is not my final space, and that I can regain my health again. Me, yes, I'm the one you're talking to. Thank you. No, thank you, Stacy Jones. I so appreciate you reaching out. Again, please, folks, keep it on up. I love getting your messages. And iTunes, please hit up the iTunes. Give us a 5-star rating and an endorsement. Truly helps the Todd Durkin Impact Show continually on this meteoric rise in the stratosphere of podcasts. I love doing these. I love getting the feedback, and I love getting more impact out into the universe. Speaking of impact and the universe, we're going to step back in time today. We're going to go back. When I was 25 years old, I was in massage therapy school in Atlanta, Georgia, hot Atlanta. And I loved it. I was playing professional football over in Europe. And on one of my off seasons, my sister Patty said, hey, there's a massage therapy school down in Atlanta that would be perfect for you to go to during the off season. I'm like, I would love to. So next thing I know, I'm living in Atlanta, Georgia. And from about 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., I was in massage school. By the way, massage school, absolutely awesome. Not only are you doing massage, but you're receiving massage therapy practically every day. So massage school, I highly recommend massage school. Might need to go back for round 2 sometime soon. But every day after 2 o'clock, I would go to the gym and work out. I was still an athlete playing football. And I befriended a guy in the gym and who we used to play hoops with, Todd Pierce. Todd Pierce's friend and future wife, Moe Pierce, we all became friends, and Moe Pierce actually is my guest on today's show. Now, in the late 90s, I did not know her entire story, but it is a story that is absolutely a miracle. It's crazy, this story that you're going to hear today. Now, I want to warn you, the TD Impact Show is always about bringing it real and keeping it reals. And what Moe Pierce is going to share here in just a few moments is heavy. And it is going to be one that is going to touch your heart. It's going to pull on your heartstrings, and it's going to allow you to think and to really go deep. But I also want you to know this: after her sharing her story, and she shares her lessons from her story that deal with sexual assault, my friends, this is one of the most powerful episodes that you will listen to. Her lessons on how she got through this as a young girl and what she's doing now to give back. You talk about impact. You talk about legacy. You talk about live a life worth telling the story about what is your story. This one has it all. So without further ado, let's go out to my friend who I've known for over 25 years and who I just recently heard her story and was so mesmerized by it that I asked her to share it on our podcast today. Without further ado, let's go over to Atlanta, Georgia, and listen in to the podcast episode with Moe Pierce. All right, Moe Pierce is in the house. Moe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Todd.
It is so great to have you on the show. We have known each other for over 25 years. As mentioned here in the intro, way back in 1995, I'm in massage therapy school, hooping it up. I think it was called Sports Life at the time, with her now husband, Todd Pierce. And that boy could hoop. And we would be lifting together. We were hooping together. And got to know you, Moe, through that time. And man, do you remember those days like it was yesterday or what?
Oh, yeah. In many ways, it feels like yesterday. In many ways, it's a long time ago, but it was really good times.
A lot has happened. A lot has
times.
happened since then, but all the way from your wedding, which I attended, all the way through watching your family grow now with 4 kids, 4 boys.
4
Bless
boys.
your heart, 4 boys. And you've been married to Todd now, what, 23 years?
Almost 23.
Almost 23 years.
October 30th.
Wow. Wow. Mo, before we get into your story, which is absolutely incredible, what's one memory from back in the day? Do you have any crazy memories back in the day, late 90s, of all of us getting together, hooting and hollering back in Hot
yeah. So many of heading to maybe Buckhead Saloon or, but
we better stop right there.
Right.
No,
having so much fun together and your same positive energy, and you're the same as you were back then. And we had a blast together. So many fun times.
Thank you. I remember I drove a 1978 Chevy Caprice Classic, and it was like midnight on a Saturday night. And I came out of your guys' apartment, and there was like an ice storm. And it was like the worst driving. Atlanta does not usually have ice. No. And let me tell you, it was slippery. It was a slippery slope getting home to Alpharetta, Georgia, on a very icy winter evening in Atlanta. But so I digress. I want to get into your amazing story. I recently heard your story because my wife, Melanie, y'all know Melanie, and Mo knows Melanie, but Melanie listened to your story. I'm like, man, I got to have Mo on the Impact Show. I've got to have you share your story. And when I reached out, you willingly obliged to share your story. And it's extraordinary. It's amazing. It's a miracle. That you're still alive, and more importantly, that you're not only alive, but you're actually doing great things with your life to give back to kids, adults, and all those who want to go from victim to victor. And right. Mo, I just want to say thank you before we dive in here, because what you're doing now is absolutely incredible. So you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, take us back. Share your story. And I want to listen in. I want to hear our listeners listen in. So if you're out for a walk, jog, run, working out, get ready to go deep with Moe Pierce. Mo, take us away.
Okay.
You were what? Young girl?
It was a beautiful day out in October in my hometown of Kenosha, Wisconsin. And I was at a park playing with my best friend, Heidi, and my mom. So she was there watching us as we played.
You're how old?
I was 8. I was in 3rd grade.
Okay, 3rd grade, 8 years. Mm-hmm.
And the way the park was situated was on the top of a hill, and it was a fenced-in park next to a fire station. So by all accounts, a safe park. And at one point I wandered away a little bit, not too far, but outside the fenced-in area to pick my mom some flowers. And very quickly, it happened fast. A stranger came up behind me, so I didn't see him coming, covered my eyes and mouth, and just started dragging me to the car, saying, don't scream, don't do anything or I'll kill you. So it happened very fast, and it was very physical, and he threatened me right off the bat. And before I knew it, we were driving away, and I'm looking up at the hill where my mom was still up there, my friend. So it happened very quickly.
Wow. Safe park. You're with your mom and a friend.
Mm-hmm.
You get abducted. Mm-hmm. You're in a car. And you remember, like, are you screaming? Are you not saying anything? Are you looking at your mom?
Well, she couldn't see me. They didn't see it happen. It just after a while, they were like, where's Maureen? I wasn't screaming because I believed his threats at the time. Don't yell, don't do anything or I'll kill you. I don't know if he meant them or if it was just to scare me, but it did. And I froze. Once we were in the car, I didn't immediately know what to do because it happened so fast. And he drove to a secluded area in the country to a cornfield. And I know he purposely went to an area where people weren't really there.
What's going through your mind? Can you remember, or is it blocked out? Like,
I remember at one point, and I did ask him some questions. I didn't immediately think jump out of the car because it happened so fast and I froze. But at one point I did start thinking, should I do something? Should I jump out of the car? And he did continue to threaten me, and I believed it. I believed if I did anything that he was going to kill me. Again, I don't know if he meant that or if it was just to scare me, which it did, into not doing anything.
Now, remember, everyone listening in is back in the day, there weren't the programs there are now where this didn't happen as regularly does now. Now you're like, you're taught to bite, kick, scream, do whatever. But back then, when you're 3rd grade and 8 years old, you trust everybody. Trust is a big thing, and you trust. Is this real? Is this a joke? And what's he going to do? Because you didn't read about it. It's not like you saw it pop up on your news feed on your phone back in what year is this?
This is 76. So
76.
Before Amber Alerts, and as you said, we didn't have the constant 24-hour news.
Yeah. So. Well, one of the reasons why we wanted to share this, and I want to share this on this podcast, number one, is to make sure that for any parent or any young kid that may be watching in, that there's some great lessons and some great things that Moe will share later on in the show. But so continue with the story. So you're in a car, he's driving. You've got to be at this point scared as heck.
I was, and I started asking questions, and then he was asking me questions: where I lived, do I have siblings? And I did ask him at one point, are you going to kill me? And he said, when I'm done with you. He took me to a cornfield and sexually assaulted, raped, was physically abusive too. And then he would go to his car and say, don't move. And the threats continued. So I didn't move. I stayed there. And my thought is he was probably going to see, was anyone there? Did anyone else pull over on this country road? And then he would come back and assault me again. And this went on for a while. And at one point, I think finally the gut intuition feeling of, I need to do something, kicked in. It didn't earlier because I just froze and I was afraid. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any training, and you just freeze up.
Forgive me if I go too deep and ask too many questions, but so this went on for like 3 or 4 times. He came back and forth, twice, 5 times.
Four or 5. It was, yeah. But at one point, a very big God moment in my life, I prayed and kind of said, what do I do? I don't want to die today. I want to live. I want to see my mom and dad again. I want to see my family and my friends again. And I just felt like a strength and a peace, call it guardian angels, say, move. He would say, don't move or I'll kill you. And I would stay there. And just one time he went back to the car, it was, I'm going to get up and move. And, in a cornfield, it's like rows. And I just went the opposite direction of him and kind of ran, kind of walked, and just got away from him. And in that moment, I was quite panicked, but I moved and I got to the side of the road.
Moved like you were like sprinting through the cornfields, or you were just like kind of like jogging, looking back? Like, was he coming? Do you remember that? Like,
right. I mean, I wasn't sprinting because it was just trying to be so afraid. And is he following me? Does he see me? But just got up and tried to get away as fast as I could in the opposite direction of him, and then eventually made my way to the side of the road, and a car came and I waved them down and they picked me up and they had said too later that they believe there was a reason they drove down that road. They never had before. So
Moe Pierce, what a miracle. What a miracle.
I've always had a lot of gratitude to be alive, because whether, I've said it before, but whether he meant those threats, I don't know, but of course I believed him. So to feel like it could have been your last day, I've always been very grateful to be alive.
First off, thank you for sharing that, because I know that's not easy. And I know you haven't shared your story publicly very, very much. And I know you wanted to get your story out after so many years of that. And just a couple more stories, because I do want to get into some of the lessons, and I realize it's heavy, but I really want to understand. You were in that field, looking back, because I'm sure you blocked everything out for a long time. Was it an hour? Was it 3 hours? Was it a half a day? Or do you don't even recollect how long you were out there?
It was like a half day, like you said, by the time I got back.
Jeez.
But I mean, it wasn't overnight.
Right.
I was able to get away.
The reason I ask is, what was your mom at some point realizes you've been abducted, and she's probably frantically calling the cops. Everyone's looking for you. They can't find you. So a half day goes by. And of course, her mind, everyone's mind is probably not good. I'm curious, for kids who get abducted, do you know the percentage of kids who get abducted who survive? Is it big, small? Like, you probably know these facts.
I do. And in fact, in the teaching and being a self-defense instructor, a lot of the information and statistics it's generally not the stranger in the park, right? In fact, sometimes they'll say it's not that example. It's not the stranger jumping out of the bushes. And I remember I'd hear that stuff sometimes and be like, well, it was for me. So more often people know the person, or it's an acquaintance, right? But I've heard anything from, if a child is taken from point A to point B, that I've heard from 70 to 90%. But the statistics are pretty grim, that
90% are killed?
Are killed if they're taken from point A to point B, kidnapped, abducted, and taken to a different location. And I read somewhere recently that it's generally within the first few hours that they're killed. Obviously, there's a lot of different experiences and stories out there, but that's why a lot of the training that we do is about trusting that gut and having those skills to respond, to train your brain to respond, so that you're not taken from point A to point B.
So you're on the side of the road, you're like waving someone down, they come and they stop. There's an 8-year-old girl on the side of the road waving her hands. And did you tell them what happened? Like, what happened? What's going on, girl? Like, what happened? And then you told the story?
I told him a man took me, and I didn't even really have the words to explain what he did. Yeah. But I did the best I could and told him what had happened. And they reassured me it was going to be okay now.
Talk about a godsend.
Right. I know.
Talk about a godsend and timing, and can't imagine that hug with your mom, all that, So thank you again. Thank you again for sharing. What happened to the guy?
He was caught. He was. I went back to school after a little bit, and I'd get taken out of school here and there. It wasn't talked about at all, but there was an investigation, and the police would come and get me out of school here and there. And, I wouldn't say as to why I was leaving, but I had to go to the police station, look at photos and see if he had had a mugshot from before. And then over some time, the police came to the school and said, we think we have him. And it terrified me at first to face him.
Sure.
But they reassured me that you could see him in a room, but he won't be able to see you. So I did identify him, and he was sentenced to 46 years for first-degree sexual assault, second-degree sexual assault, and abduction and use of force. So he did go.
Good.
Yeah.
Monster off the street. Wow. Well, Moe Pierce, you talk about miracles. You are a miracle, my friend. And I obviously didn't know that when I first met you, because that wasn't public knowledge. You weren't sharing. You were still processing it. And here, how many years later? Is it almost 40 years later? You're right. It seems like it's a long time. I want to skip forward to today. You're a self-defense instructor. You're doing so many great things for kids and educating and helping. And I know you've helped hundreds, if not thousands of folks. But if you could share maybe a few of your top lessons, and they're really life lessons. It's not just necessarily from this experience, but it's from this experience. But a few of your lessons that we can glean on this. What would be a few of the lessons? I don't know if you've got them boiled down to 3 or 5 or 8 or whatever, but what would be a few lessons you could share and impart some of your love and wisdom with us? That
healing takes time. It's a journey, and I'm realizing this even now. I just recently started therapy after not going for 10 years. So it takes time. It's a journey, and there's a lot of talk about going to therapy, and I think there's a lot more resources out there, and I think therapy is amazing. It took me a long time to actually go. I didn't go until I was an adult, and that's great. So therapy is great, but you also want to think not just about your mind and healing, but your body and your spirit. And just knowing that it takes time to go through your journey of healing. You're going to have different stages in your life. You might have things that come up that bring up new things, and that's okay. And you might say, okay, I'm ready to start processing something else. And I think it's really important to talk about these things. And we know that a lot more now than we did back then, that it's not helpful to push everything down. Yeah. I didn't want to start therapy in a way because I thought, I don't want to go there and bring all this up because I had pushed it down for so long. And I know so many people out there can relate to whatever their pain was. If you push it down, you're not going to heal. You have to get that out of your body because it affects you mentally, but physically too. And don't ever think it's too late. It's not too late. Just start, because if you don't bring out that pain, it's just going to affect you and you can't really get through your healing. So it took me a long time to realize, in order to truly heal from this, I can't just push it down and slap a smile on my face. Yeah. We do have to bring it up, talk through it, go through it. And it can be tough, but the other side is so much better, because then you can heal and process, and you can turn that pain into a purpose, or you can turn that trauma or tragedy into something good. And so going through the therapy is really important. And even if it's just saying, I'm going to start today, it could be that you're going to read a book or journal, but it's going through that process of getting it out if it's something you've really pushed down.
So I've got down, it takes time to heal. Right. It takes time to heal. And you mentioned trauma affects you emotionally and physically on that. I have that as the first one. When you say physically, where specifically were you manifesting physical pain from trauma, would you say?
In my gut. And I'm learning this now. And I think there's a lot more information out there so people can find this. And I used to say, since I was 8, I couldn't sleep. Since I was 8, I had gut issues, or since I was little. Just all kinds of gut and digestive issues that I've now recently learned from some experts that trauma manifests in your gut. Yep. So I do think it affected me and affects people so much more than just mentally. It affects you physically. And if you don't get it out of your system or your body and start dealing with it, it can really wreak havoc on your body.
Yeah.
And then that can cause pain and inflammation and maybe depression, because then you're not sleeping as well, and anxiety.
Yeah, that's so good. I've heard the analogy before about healing and pain is if you've got suppressed emotions and you keep pushing it down, it's like pushing a bobber underwater.
Right.
And it keeps popping up somewhere
right.
else. Different areas of your life and relationships or your finances or your self-sabotaging in one way. So you have to deal with it, which is the second point. I'm a linear, so forgive me. I like to okay, what are my 5 points? But I heard it takes time to heal. 2, I heard go to therapy. Go to therapy because, okay, it takes time to heal, but you also mentioned therapy has been a huge part of your healing process. What type of therapy have you gone to? I know there's a lot of different types, but would there be 1 or 2 that you'd say has been a pivotal part of your healing?
Yes, I did do some therapy when I was younger, but I would say I dabbled in it, because what would happen is I would go and I would talk about everything else going on except my trauma when I was 8. So in a way, it took until I was an adult for someone to challenge me a little bit, a therapist who specialized in trauma at Emory, for her to say, no, we're going to talk about this trauma. Because I had never really gotten that out of, as you said, you push it down so much. So I think it's important for people, even if they had gone to some therapy before and talked about some things, if there's really a trauma that they've suppressed, it's important to get that out and process that. So then I didn't go to therapy, honestly, for over 10 years. It was 4 boys, who has time for that?
Yeah.
You do need to make time for it. It's about self-love and putting yourself first, and that's not selfish. So recently, just through losing both of my parents, I noticed that the grief brought some things up. So as we said, healing takes time and it's a journey. Sometimes people need to know maybe there's stages in your life or things that happen or triggers that bring some new things up. And that's okay. I really, until someone suggested it to me, I wouldn't have gone. But they said, what about EMDR for all your gut symptoms? I was thinking they were going to tell me what to eat, but instead it's trauma therapy. So I just recently started that and I'm learning some new things. So next level healing.
EMDR, what does it stand for?
It's eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So a lot people with trauma will understand this. Or maybe they'll hear it now and understand. If you really never deal with trauma and you push it down, you have these, especially sexual assault survivors, rape survivors, for whatever reason, our stories might be different, but we all seem to share shame and guilt. And it's so powerful, and that affects every aspect of your life, as you said earlier. So you start to feel these beliefs like I'm not worthy, it's my fault. And if you truly feel that way in your brain, it affects every part of your life. So it's about understanding what those thoughts are and changing it to a positive.
Yeah, this is good. These are very tangible takeaways. EMDR. What about anyone who's going through any forms of trauma, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, trauma? Any other material, reading books, authors that you've really just kind of indulged in as far as okay, I got to read this book, or you would recommend that someone who's processing, you mentioned the loss of both of your parents, anyone who's been a survivor of abuse, physical pain, trauma, whatever it may be, any specific book that you would recommend or books?
I just came across a book recently that I heard on 2 different podcasts, and his name is Dr. Paul Conti, and it's Trauma, the Invisible Epidemic. And I don't know if it's just being talked about.
That's more. The title, Trauma, the Invisible Epidemic?
Dr. Paul Conti. I think for anyone who had gone through a traumatic event, especially, it doesn't have to be just as a child, but a suppressed.
It could be called the COVID-19
right,
trauma.
Right.
All of us have been through trauma.
It's just such good information. And the takeaway is, you would think it was common sense, but yet it's that we have to talk about what happened. We can't push it down. We can't suppress it. It's actually the opposite of what we should do. It needs to come out. And if we don't, we tend to kind of make the same mistakes over and over.
Yeah.
Or put ourselves in a bad position because we're not processing it. And you need to get it out for self-love.
Yeah, I'm going to put that in the show notes, folks, just so you know it. But Dr. Paul Conti, Trauma, the Invisible Epidemic. She mentioned EMDR. She's sharing from the heart and soul today. Moe Pierce is. Mo, you mentioned it takes time to heal. 1, 2. Again, I'm linear. 2, got to go to therapy. I also heard use your pain as your purpose. Pain as purpose. And I love that. Talk about that more. How are you now using the pain that you not only went through and the trauma you went through, but obviously suppressed emotions for many years? How now are you using that pain to serve your purpose today?
I always wanted to do something with my situation, and there were things I did. I was a rape crisis counselor when I moved to Atlanta, but I think at that time I really hadn't dealt with my own trauma enough.
Yeah.
So in 2012, here in Atlanta, a young girl, Jareli Rivera, was abducted in her neighborhood. It was in Canton, Georgia, and within a few hours was assaulted and killed. And it was before I was really talking about my situation, my experience. It wasn't, public. I'd maybe tell someone one-on-one. And it just, anytime I heard stories like that, it affected me. So when I found out they found her body, it made me so sad. And I even felt some guilt, survivor's guilt. But I heard people talking about it on a local radio station about RAD kids and the RAD system, and now RAD women. And I went to training to be a self-defense instructor. And ever since then, all the training I got has helped me find a purpose in giving others either the ability to stay safe, because 90% of self-defense is awareness. So teaching them that awareness so that they are not a target as an assault, or if it's someone who had been through any type of sexual assault in the past, it's getting them their power back. So that's where I'm just turning my pain, I guess, into a purpose. And I love empowering others through this program and seeing them right in front of my eyes grow in confidence and feel like they're more able to take care of themselves because they're more aware. And they also have some tools and they just feel more confident.
Wow. In a weird way, would you almost be, I'll say, grateful for your journey here, because now what you're doing, you're such on point with your purpose that you're feeling this purpose that's way bigger than you. And maybe I'm just assuming, but your purpose, obviously, with RAD Kids and what you're doing as an instructor is huge. In some way, do you feel that? Do you feel that?
I do. I feel a lot of gratitude in just being alive. And I feel like if we can use our experiences in life to help others, there's really no better feeling.
Yeah.
So I have my last RAD Women class in July. I'm planning another one soon. And again, whether you are a survivor or not, that physical power and empowerment is just amazing feeling to have.
Well, hey, there's another resource for you. RAD Kids. Where would someone get information on RAD Kids, and who is it best for?
So there's 2 different programs I'm certified in. The RAD Kids I taught at the boys' school for years, and that's ages 5 to generally about 13.
Okay.
And RAD Kids website, and then RAD Women, it's radsystems.com. And that's more for older women. There is a men's class too.
Older meaning how old? Like 30 plus?
Like 13 and older.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's more specific and geared towards sexual assault.
So it's teens and young adults.
And women.
Okay. So 13 and up.
Correct.
Okay.
They do have a men's class. I'm not certified, but there's a reason, because the men and women or kids are older, that at that point you want to separate it. So they're all over the country, but if they don't have, they can DM me and I can get them in touch with their state director or the area director. And if there isn't a Rad Kids or Rad Women class in their area, then I can follow up and try to find them either a class or some more information on how they can get that self-defense training, because we talked about the mind, but the body and spirit healing is very important too.
Amen to that. It all works together. Pastor Jeremiah always talks about the mind, body, and soul all work so closely together. They'll catch the disease of each other. Be careful because they're contagious. Make sure the mind, body, and soul are all healthy. So you're absolutely on point with that, Mo. How about one or two more lessons before we wrap up today's show? And I'll get everyone your contact information as well. So if you want to reach out, DM Mo on Rad Kids, Rad Women, the Rad System. We'll put that there at the end. But one or two more lessons possibly, Mo, that you would have with this. I have number one, it takes time to heal. Two, use your pain, two, go to therapy. And three, use your pain as your purpose.
Right. And I think too, it's never too late. Always try to work on yourself. And maybe about a year and a half ago, I started this coaching club with Jesse Itzler. It's called the Calendar Club, Build Your Life Resume.
Love Jesse. That's awesome.
It's been great because for me, it was just trying new things. And when we talk about mind, body, spirit, or soul healing, things like starting your day with even just a 5-minute meditation can really change yourself, or can really change your day and change you. So those are some of the things that I've done with this coaching club. And it's just get 1% better every day. Love yourself.
It sounds like you've been listening. I love it. It. When you say always working on yourself, what I love about that is it really demarks that this life is a journey. And many of us have been sometimes through hell and back, you being one, Mo, like that. Your experiences has been certainly a miracle that you're still alive and here and doing great things. But many of us, many who are listening in today have, if you've been around the block for a while, you've had stuff happen in your life to you, for you, however you want to say it. But we know that life is a journey. I was having a talk with one of the coaches I work with, Kelly Watson, the other day. It was a beautiful conversation about joy and suffering. We all want more joy, peace, contentment, fulfillment. But we're talking specifically about joy. How do we get more joy? But we can't really appreciate joy if we haven't had suffering. If we haven't been through something that's challenging in life, then we can't truly fully appreciate when things are going well, or we experience joy or happiness in there. And that's hard because none of us want to suffer more, but it was the dichotomy of joy and suffering. And many of us don't want to suffer, or we're like, enough suffering. It's time to draw a line in the sand and move on. But it's something that you epitomize. And Mo, again, I want to say thank you. Always work on yourself. Certainly. I'm going to add one because I heard it come up a few. Our fifth and final one, I heard this from you. You said God moments. I'm going to add, always look for God moments, because you said in the middle of your horrific experience, you had a God moment. Who would have thunk in how close you were to death and being a very just a 8-year-old innocent girl, and you had a God moment in this time, and then you had other God moments throughout your life. I'm going to add that, always look for God moments. And do you want to touch on that at all, Mo? Because I heard it come out a couple different times.
Absolutely. And you talk about this a lot. It's that faith and understanding and recognizing those moments where you talk about, you can get joy from it. And it's also practicing gratitude every day. And you're more able to find those God moments if you're practicing gratitude and you're aware. But if you look for them, they can be there. And it's just taking those moments and saying, what can I do with this? What do you want me to do with this, God?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so good. God moments. My question for everyone today would be, how are you leaning into your faith? How are you leaning into your faith, especially in the good times as well as the bad times? It's easy when things aren't going right? When you're like, God, help me out of this situation. Right. I need help. And you tend to pray more after a loss or things aren't going well, and rightfully so. But are you leaning into your faith when things are going well, and you're expressing your gratitude? My question is, how are you leaning into faith these days? How are you doing that? What are you doing? Another coaching client I was working with the other day, we talked about, prayer and leaning into God doesn't always have to be formal. Like we have our 5-minute morning routine. I've got my 5-minute, journaling routine in the evening. But a lot of times prayer isn't formal. Talking to God and leaning into God isn't always formal. It's a discussion in the car while you're working out, or you're walking the dog, or you're jogging, or you're lifting, and you're like, God, help me out right here. Bro, I want to talk to you a little bit about this. Here's the situation. And it could be informal, but how are you leaning into your faith and always looking for God moments? So those are 5 incredible lessons. Mo, I just want to say thank you for being here, for showing up and sharing your story on the podcast. It takes a lot of courage to share your story. I actually have today my Live a Life Worth Telling a Story about, right?
I love that.
Live a Life Worth Telling a Story about. What's your story? And
I love that.
Moe Pierce, you have one heck of a story. And without you sharing your story, well, there would be other women and men who may not be as hopeful today to continue going. If they survived and they're a survivor of abuse or a horrific experience or event like yourself, you now are one of the faces of a survivor of what it takes, and now giving back to so many kids and adults who are looking for that. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Just for sharing your beauty from the inside. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Todd. It's hard to talk about, and I wasn't as comfortable in the past, but what I've learned is if I'm not willing to share, and because of the shame or whatever reason, how am I going to help others? And the times I've always had someone come back to me and say, I never told anyone this before, or I've never shared this. So I know there's people out there that can relate and have pain. And no matter the stories, they're all different. A lot of the feelings are the same. So if it's just taking that one step that they look in the mirror and they say, I am worthy, I deserve love, and I'm going to do something to help myself today. Yeah. Mo, I have one final question for you. What would Moe Pierce, the mom of 4, the wife of Todd, now almost 23 years, the self-defense instructor, what would Moe Pierce today tell that young 8-year-old girl who is full of fear and not knowing if she was going to live? What would you tell her today? I would take her face in my hands and tell her, it's not your fault. You are not only going to survive, you are going to thrive, and you deserve it. You deserve to survive and thrive. And I would tell anyone else who feels that they aren't worthy or is struggling from an assault, that it is not their fault. They are worthy and they deserve to thrive. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Moe Pierce. You're beautiful. I love you sharing this. I love you, TD. So much courage and faith. And if someone wants to reach out to you, They want to DM you, they want to contact you, they want to get involved with Rad Kids or Rad Women or any of the programs to give back, what's the best way they can do that?
Yes, I encourage them to please reach out to me. It's Moe Pierce, MoePierce 6 on Instagram. And from there we can connect via email or whatever is the best way, if it's about classes to take, etc. But that's the best way to start.
Wow. Moe Pierce, that was incredible. Thank you for sharing your story. Live a life worth telling a story about. What is your story? Moe Pierce, thank you for your story. I love you.
Thank you, Todd. I love you too.
Wowzer. Moe Pierce, that was awesome. Thank you all for listening. As mentioned, I know that story is heavy, but it's real. It's real talk, and we need more real talk. This is something that still today is a very pertinent topic, and I want to make sure that we can prevent it from happening, and then if it was to happen, there are people like Moe Pierce and obviously trained counselors and doctors and therapists that can help those who have gone through situations and victims of assault, rape, violence, abuse, whatever it may be. So again, huge shout out to Moe Pierce for opening her heart and soul up to share with us today. And it's important that I tackle topics like this because again, it's real. So hey, if you want to reach out to Moe, it's on Instagram, Moe Pierce 6, Moe Pierce 6. It's MOE Pierce, PIERCE 6 at Moe Pierce 6. Also, with the Rad Kids program and Rad Systems, it's rad-systems.com, rad-systems.com, and then radkids.org, radkids.org. So there you have it, my friends. Hey, please share this episode. It's an incredible story, one that epitomizes resilience, grit, courage, strength, faith, hope. All of these things are wrapped up into a woman who is doing amazing things as a mother, as a wife, and giving back to all those who have been affected by sexual violence, assault. And man, my heart is full for Moe Pierce today for sharing that. I hope it really allows you to not only think, but to do and to share to make this world a better place. As always, when I say live a life worth telling the story about, what is your story? Thank you for all who are doing great things in the world that so desperately needs more positivity, hope, light, love, and impact right now. Until next time, remember, train hard, eat right, live inspired, and let's go create impact today.